Leandro Olaya was a wealthy man, and every day he would search through the garbage of the neighborhood. He used to come back home carrying rusty metals, leftover food, malodorous plastics, and all kinds of trinkets. He accumulated everything in the basement, and there he spent a major part of his time. He asked both his wife and daughters to never enter the room, at least while he was alive. It was a surprising and a somewhat disturbing request, but the family accepted and kept the promise. The neighbors couldn't understand his obsession for garbage, but rejected the idea that he had become insane. Leandro had always had a touch of genius that excused such eccentricities, and in his dealings with society, he had always been polite and charming. When asked about the garbage, he would answer with humor and apologize for the bad impression he might have caused. From his explanations, it was possible to infer that his accumulation of waste had a purpose, one which he always denied. At first, Leandro's wife worried about her husband's mental health. After some conversations about it, she was relieved to see that it was nothing more than an eccentric fixation. When she asked him why he was doing it, he didn't answer. She correctly understood that his silence didn't come from the desire to hide a secret, but from the fear of revealing something too intimate, so much so that not even he could comprehend it. He knew that his intentions were good. He also knew that his behavior could have negative repercussions for his family, and he would change it if necessary. These concerns turned out to be unfounded. With the exception of an occasional joke, the image that the town had of Leandro was more than positive. It could even be said that the situation helped to create the image of a mad genius, which made him more attractive. Some neighbors report seeing multicolored lights coming out of the basement windows. The lack of something new made Leandro's strange routine lose its interest over time, and Leandro and his hobbies became part of the town's normality. After a reasonable number of years, Leandro Olaya died. The gathering of garbage continued until his very last days. Freed from the promise made in her childhood, one of his daughters went down to the basement. She expected an ocean of cables, plastics, and rotten food. She found none of that. The floor and the walls were perfectly clean, and in the middle of the basement there was a floating sphere, as mechanical as it was organic. It radiated a calm light that contained a woman's gasp of surprise. For several minutes, she stood motionless, trying to understand the sphere. She called her sisters. All of them felt the need to show the town the miracle. The neighbors lined up, and one by one came in to see the strange object. Some refused to leave the basement and religiously gave themselves over to the silver ball. None dared to touch it. Comments and questions began to spread. Was this Leandro's objective? How could something sacred be created from garbage? There were those who claimed to have seen the mechanical components of the sphere dissolve in the ball like mercury and reappear at another point. There were also those who swore they had heard it breathe, and those who said they had seen a face in it. A neighbor thought he recognized his old radio. Having contributed to the sphere filled him with joy. Another wondered if the miracle was not a manifestation of Leandro's soul. This unusual idea interested many, and they confessed to having finally understood the gathering obsession of the deceased. At nightfall, the neighbors were still waiting patiently. It was then that the sphere began to stir. A silver tongue violently sprung out of it, pierced through the basement window, and reached the road without hurting anyone. For a moment, it was motionless but throbbing. From the tip of the tongue sprouted strange fingers, which soon multiplied. They spread through the air and onto the ground with the color of gasoline on asphalt, forming multicolored tentacles, holographic wires, translucent eyes, metal bars covered in reflections, fluorescent mouths and teeth, beams of light. The huge threads enveloped the sky and the buildings, always avoiding people and animals with gentleness. Wherever they landed, life arose, They revitalized the trees they touched and purified the air from pestilence and pollution. In just a few hours, the planet was covered with this divine fungus. This was the day Leandro Olaya achieved his goal, the day in which what we now know as paradise was created. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you want to see more, please take a look at the other videos on my channel. Have a good day.